I live in a house where I can't find much history of. All I know is that when my parents moved in, they found a pelvic bone and dirty magazines in the wall of the bathroom. Growing up, I've always seen a female spirit with long black hair, pale body, and around 5'6". I see her walking around the hallway, sitting in my old room, and all that sort of stuff. My mom has seen her too. She said she always thought it was me, and me and the spirit are pretty similar looking. My mom would always tell me she would walk past my room at night and see her sitting on the edge of my bed, or would see her in the corner of her eye. This has been going on for 15 years since we moved in. I've gotten used to the spirit and don't see her much lately, but this is what really freaked me out. For the last 2 weeks, I've been hearing whistling. The whistling starts between 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m. The first time this happened, I was laying in bed on my phone. Suddenly, the whistling started. It sounded like a grown man was whistling outside my house. My house has only one neighbor next to us, and on the other side of the house is land. It's full of dirt and bush for a bit. My room is at the front of the house, so the window just shows the view of the front, and there is a field. After a minute, I built up the courage to look outside the window. Nothing was there, but it got extremely quiet and the whistling stopped. I got back into bed and it started again, sounding closer. After a few minutes, the whistling stopped again. The same thing would happen every night at the same time, but now I don't look out the window anymore. I have a feeling not to, like something was telling me it's not okay to look. Last night was different. As I was preparing for the whistling to start again, suddenly I heard a bang on the roof, followed by footsteps. This lasted a minute, and as soon as I thought it was over, I heard footsteps at my window. I laid still and physically could not move. I felt a negative energy and something just wasn't right. That's when my dog walked in and looked out the window. She normally is a loud dog and will bark when she hears noises and try to investigate. However, the look on her face made me even more scared. She jumped onto my bed and cuddled me. My dog has been very quiet today and will not go near my window. I have no idea what this is and what it wants. If anyone has any ideas or anything, please let me know. I'm a person who picks up on energy very easily, so this is maybe why I'm the only one experiencing this in my house. But whatever this is, I want it gone, and I want to know what it is. I recently stayed the night at my childhood home. It's an old house built in the 19th century. I never felt at ease in that house. It has an eerie vibe to it. When I was 17, my parents told me that they were able to afford this house, which was a mansion, because the previous owners wanted to desperately get rid of it. The reason being is that their son had hung himself in the attic. It happened last week. I stayed the night there because I had a football game that was close to where my parents were living. I didn't feel like waking up super early, so that's why I held a sleepover in my old bedroom. I went to sleep fairly early, around 10 p.m. or so. Everything felt normal. I made sure all the doors were locked, and my parents were on a wellness retreat in Germany, and my brother moved out a while ago, so it was just me in the house. I went to sleep feeling comfortable and quite at ease even though I was cautious. I texted some of my friends goodnight, and that was it. The comfortable feeling suddenly wore off when I was awoken at 3 a.m. I heard music playing, but it was muffled. I couldn't hear it clearly. My instinct was that it was a car playing music with its windows closed, parked on the street. I said to myself, give it 10 minutes and the car will pass. The music was still playing 10 minutes later. I felt annoyed and quite frankly pissed off. I had to wake up early, and this was ruining my sleep. I walked to my bedroom window to see where the music was coming from. I was ready to throw a fit. I opened my blinds, opened the window to look outside, and my stomach dropped. There was no car, nor was there anyone else outside. I realized the music was coming from the attic. My parents renovated the attic 5 years ago and made it into their bedroom. I knew it had a radio on my mother's bedside. She never used it, though most of the time it wasn't even plugged in, because she only had one socket and she used it to charge her phone. It was not a new radio. It was around early 2000s, I would guess. My mom held on to it because it was the radio of her departed father. She could not get rid of it. I was freaking out. Why would these kinds of encounters only happen when I'm home alone? I tried calling my parents, they didn't pick up, and my brother didn't pick up either. Not surprising since it was 3 in the morning. I realized that I would have to deal with this situation alone. I opened up my bedroom door and the music became louder. I could clearly hear what music was playing now. It was a dark organ music. My stomach dropped again. I never felt as scared as I did then. I did not want to do this alone. I I had one last rescue line that I could call. It was my friend Philip. He played Call of Duty until the early hours, so he surely was still awake. I called him and explained the situation. He reassured me that it was probably a problem with the electric outlet, and it had jump-started the radio. I felt reassured by his answers and made the walk upstairs to the attic. I was on the phone with him the whole time. I stood in front of the door and I could clearly hear the music. It was so loud. I knew I had to get in to turn it off, but I was so frightened. Philip reassured me that everything was going to be all right. It was just faulty wiring, and that's what I kept repeating to myself. I opened the door. The music stopped. I ran downstairs, put on all the lights, and watched Trailer Park Boys until 7 a.m. I played the worst football game in history the next day. We lost 7-0. When I was about 10 or 11, I found myself waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to move. It genuinely frightened me because I never heard of sleep paralysis, and I had no idea why I couldn't move. I kept looking around my room. It was dark, only lit up by the smallest bit of moonlight, and the light on my computer's power button, which added a greenish light to the room. As I looked around, I had the feeling I was being watched, but my heart sank in when I noticed a hand slowly reaching up from the foot of my bed. The best way to describe this hand was it was dark, skinny, and had fingers that were about a foot long each. Just to give a better description, my bed was a loft, meaning it was basically a bunk bed that didn't have a bottom half. The only thing under my bed was a computer desk. So I would have to climb to get into my actual bed. I noticed my bed starting to shake as the creature with the large, skinny hand slowly ascended. I couldn't move or even scream for my dad, so the only thing I could do was close my eyes. When I opened them, the creature was gone. However, seconds later, I saw my bed start to shake, and once again, that hand slowly rose up from the foot of my bed. I did the same thing, closing my eyes, only to open them up and see the figure was gone once again. But a few seconds later, as you probably guessed, the same thing happened again. At this point, I felt a bit more in control, knowing that if the creature gets too close, I can simply just close my eyes again. With this in mind, I guess I felt like I wanted to see how far he would come. So I kept my eyes open a bit longer. This time, the creature slowly makes its way onto my bed, and finally getting far enough to reveal his face. And his face was just disturbing. It was pale and cartoonish, but it would move as if it was running at like 20 FPS. It was not a face I could describe or even comprehend, and it did not match the dark, misty body it had. I was so terrified, and the fact that I couldn't even move made it all the more traumatizing for me as a kid. I felt trapped, and there was nothing I could do. Well, except for one thing. So once again, I closed my eyes and kept them shut for at least 15 seconds longer than usual. And at this point, I felt like the creature would have been long gone, so I felt safe to open my eyes. But when I did, I felt like my world came to an end as my heart sank to the bottom of my stomach. The creature was 2 inches away from my face. If I could scream, that would have been an appropriate action at the time, but I still couldn't move. I closed my eyes again, and when I opened them, he was gone, and I could move again. I felt a bit relieved that I could move, and I wanted to run to my parents' room across the hall, but I was still paralyzed. This time paralyzed with fear. I lay in my bed shaking, wondering what the heck just happened.